Chapter 9, Friday, August 26, 1977. Tat, tat, tat. Since his experience with Brenda Macklin on Monday, Salisbury had been able to resist temptation. At any time, he could have taken full control of another good-looking woman, could have raped her and razed all memory of the act from her mind. He took strength from the knowledge that the bitches were his for the asking, whenever he could honestly conclude that the field test was a smashing success, and that no danger of discovery existed. He would screw that he want, every one of them that he wanted. The bitches, animals, little animals, dozens of them, all of them, because he knew the future held an endless, almost endless orgy for him. He was able to cope, if only temporarily, with his desire. He went from house to house using the key lock code phrase, interviewing his subjects, observing and testing, denying himself, working hard, doing his job, so strict with himself. He was proud of his willpower. This morning, his willpower shattered. For the past 4 nights, his sleep had been disturbed by grotesque dreams that featured his mother and Miriam, and sudden violence and blood, and an eerie, indescribable atmosphere of perverted sex. When he came awake this morning, shouting and flailing at the bedclothes, he thought of Emma Thorpe, deep cleavage in an orange sweater, and she seemed to him like an antidote for the poison that had churned through him while he slept. He had to have her, was going to have her today, soon, and to hell with self-denial. The smooth stream of power in him was again transformed into a rhythmic alternating current, crackling across countless acres, 100 million synapses. His thoughts ricocheted with great energy from one subject to another, submachine gun thoughts. Tat, tat, tat. At 7:45, he left Pauline Vickers' rooming house and went to the cafe on the square. The sky was cloudy, the air humid. At 8:25, he finished his breakfast and left the cafe. At 8:40, he reached the Thorpe's place, the last house on Union Road next to the river. He rang the doorbell twice. The chief of police himself answered. He hadn't gone to work yet. Good, wonderful. Salisbury said, I'm the key. I am the lock. Let me in. Bob Thorpe stepped out of his way, let him by, then closed the door after him. Is your wife here? Yes, your son. He's here too. Anyone else? Just you and me. Your son's name, Jeremy. Where are they? In the kitchen. Take me to them. Thorpe hesitated. Take me to them. They went along a narrow but brightly papered hallway. The kitchen was modern and stylish, Mediterranean cupboards and fixtures, copper-tone refrigerator and upright freezer, a microwave oven. A television set was suspended from the ceiling in one corner and angled towards the big round table by the window. Jeremy was at the table, eating eggs and toast, facing the hall. To the boy's right, Emma sat with one elbow on the table, drinking in a glass of orange juice. She was wearing a blue floor-length corduroy house coat. Her hair was golden and full as he remembered it. As she turned to ask her husband, who had rung the bell, he saw that her lovely face was still soft with sleep, and for some reason that aroused him. She said, Bob. Who's this? Salisbury said, I'm the key. Two voices responded. At 8:55, making the weekly trip into town to lay in a fresh supply of perishables, Paul Annandale braked at the end of the gravel road, looked both ways, then turned left into Main Street. From the back seat, Mark said, Don't take me all the way to Sam's place. Let me out at the square. Looking in the rearview mirror, Paul said, Where are you going? Mark patted the large canary cage that stood at the seat beside him. The squirrel danced and chattered. I want to take Buster to see Jeremy. Swiveling around in her seat and looking back at her brother, Raya said, Why don't you admit that you don't ever go to the house to see Jeremy? We all know you've got a crush on Emma. Not so, Mark said in such a way that he proved absolutely that what was said was true. Oh, Mark, she said exasperatedly. Well, it's a lie, Mark insisted. I don't have a crush on Emma. I'm not some sappy kid. Raya turned around again. No fights, Paul said. We'll leave Mark off at the square with Buster and there will be no fights. Salisbury said, Do you understand that, Bob? I understand. You will not speak unless spoken to, and you will not move from their chair unless I tell you to move. I won't move, but you'll watch. I'll watch. Jeremy, I'll watch too. Watch what? Salisbury said. Watch you. Screw her. Dumb cop, dumb kid. He stood by the sink, leaned against the counter. Come here, Emma. She shot up. Come to him. Take off your robe. She took it off. She was wearing a yellow bra and yellow panties with 3 embroidered red flowers at the left hip. Take off your bra. Her breasts fell free, heavy, beautiful. Jeremy, did you know your mother Looks so nice. The boy swallowed hard. No. Thorpe's hands were on the table. They had curled into fists. Relax, Bob. You're going to enjoy this. You're going to love it. You can't wait for me to have her. Thorpe's hand opened. He leaned back in his chair, touching her breast, staring into her shimmering green eyes. Salisbury had a delightful idea, marvellous, excited. He said, Emma, I think this would be more enjoyable if you resisted me a bit. Not seriously, you understand. Not physically. Just keep asking me not to hurt you and cry. She stared at him. Could you cry for me, Emma? I'm so scared. Good, excellent. I didn't tell you to relax, did I? You should be scared, damn scared and obedient. Are you frightened enough to cry, Emma? She shivered. You're very firm, she said. Nothing. Cry for me. Bob. He can't help you. He squeezed her breast. My son. He's watching. It's all right if he watches. Didn't he suck those when he was a baby? Tears formed at the corner of her eyes. Fine, he said. Oh, that's sweet. Mark could only carry the screw in the cage for 15 or 20 minutes at a time. Then he had to put it down and shake his arms to get the pain out of them. Cup your breast with your hands. She did as she was told. She wept. Pull on the nipples. Don't make me do this. Come on, little animal. At first, upset by the jerking, shaking, and swinging of his cage, Buster ran in tight little circles and squealed like an injured rabbit. You sound like a rabbit, Mark told him during one of the rest stops. Buster squealed, unconcerned with his image. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're not a dumb bunny. You're a squirrel. In front of Edison's door, as he was closing the car door, Paul saw something gleaming in the back seat. What's that? Raya was still in the car, doing her safety belt. What's that? What's what? On the back seat. It's the key to Buster's cage. Raya squirmed into the back seat. I'd better take it to him. He won't need it, Paul said. Just don't lose it. No, she said. I'd better take it to him. He'll want to let Buster out so he can show off for Emma. Who are you, Cupid? She grinned at him. Unzip my trousers. I don't want to. Do it. She did. Enjoy yourself, Bob. Yes, he laughed. Dumb cop. By the time he reached the edge of the Thorpe property, Mark had found a better way to grip the cage. The new method didn't strain his arm so much, and he didn't have to stop every few yards to rest. Buster had become so upset by the erratic movement of his pen that he had stopped squealing. He was gripping the bar with all 4 feet, hanging on the side of the cage, very still and quiet, frozen if he were in the woods, and had just seen a predator creeping through the bush. They'll be eating breakfast, Mark said. We'll go around to the back door. Squeeze it. She did. Hot? Yes, little animal. Don't hurt me. Is it hard? Yes, crying. Bend over. Sobbing, shaking, begging him not to hurt her, she did as she had been told. Her face glistened with tears. She was almost hysterical, so beautiful. Mark was passing the kitchen window when he heard the woman crying. He stopped and listened closely to the broken words, the pitiful pleas that were punctuated by long sobs. He knew at once that it was Emma. The window was only 2 feet away, and it seemed to beckon him. He couldn't resist. He went to it. The curtains were drawn, but there was a narrow gap between them. He pressed his face to the window pane. Chapter 10. 16 days earlier, Wednesday, August 10th, 1977, at 3 o'clock in the morning, Salisbury joined Dawson in the first floor study of the Greenwich house. Have they begun already? 10 minutes ago, Dawson said. What's coming in? Exactly what we've hoped for. 4 men sat on straight-back chairs around a massive walnut desk, one at each side of it. They were all household servants, the butler, the chauffeur, the cook, and the gardener. 3 months ago, the entire staff at the house had been given the drug and treated to the subliminal program, and there was no longer any need to hide the project from them. On occasion, as now, they made very useful tools. There were 4 telephones on the desk, each connected to an infinity transmitter. The men were referring to lists of Black River telephone numbers, dialing, listening for a few seconds or a minute, hanging up and dialing again. The infinities transmitted, purchased in Brussels for $2,500 each, allowed them to eavesdrop on most of the bedrooms of Black River in perfect anonymity. What if, with an IF hooked to a telephone, they could dial any number they wish, long distance or local, without going through an operator and without leaving a record of the call in the telephone company computer? An electric tone oscillator deactivate the spell on the phone being called and simultaneously open the receiver's microphone. The people at the other end of the line heard no ringing and were not aware that they were being monitored. These 4 servants were able, therefore, to hear anything said in the room where the distant telephone was placed. Salisbury went round the desk, leaned down and listened at each earpiece. Nightmare. So vivid, I can't remember what it was, but it scared the hell out of me. Look how I'm shaking. So cold. You too. What the devil? Feel like I'm going to throw up. All right, maybe we could call Doc Troutman. And around again, something we 8. Flu at this time of year. First thing in the morning, God, if I don't stop shaking, I'll rattle myself to pieces. Running with sweat, but cold. Dawson tapped Salisbury on the shoulder. Are you going to stay here and watch over them? I might as well. Then I'll go to the chapel for a while. He was wearing pajamas, a dark blue silk robe, and soft leather slippers. At this hour, with rain falling outside, it didn't seem likely that even a religious fanatic of Dawson's bent would get dressed and go out to church. Salisbury said, You've got a chapel in the house. I have a chapel in each one of my residences, Dawson said proudly. I wouldn't build a house without one. It's a way of thanking him for all that he's done for me. After all, it's because of him that I have the house in the first place. Dawson went to that door, paused, looked back and said, I'll thank him for our success and pray for more of the same. Say one for me, Salisbury said with sarcasm he knew would escape the man. Frowning, Dawson said, I don't believe in that. In what? I can't pray for your soul, and I can only pray for your success so far as it supports my own. I don't believe one man should pray for another. The salvation of your soul is your own concern and the most vital of your life. The notion that you can buy indulgence or have someone else, a priest, anyone else pray for you, well, that strikes me as Roman Catholic. I'm not Roman Catholic. Salisbury said, neither am I. I'm glad to hear it, Leonard said. He smiled warmly. One pope hated to another and went out. A maniac, Salisbury thought. What am I doing in partnership with the maniac? Disturbed by his own question, he went around the desk again, listening to the voices of the people in the Black River. Gradually, he forgot about Dawson and regained his confidence. I was going to work out as planned. He knew it. He was sure of it. What could possibly go wrong? Chapter 11. Friday, August 26, 1977. Raya flung the cage key high into the air and a few feet ahead of her. She ran forward as if she was playing centre field, and she caught the golden ball. Then she flipped it up and ran after it again. At the corner of Main Street and Union Road, she tossed the key once more and missed. She heard the metal edge ring as it struck the sidewalk behind her, but when she turned, she couldn't see the trinket anywhere. Emma Thorpe bent over and braced her arms on the kitchen table. She accidentally knocked aside an empty coffee cup. I fell off the table and shattered on the tile floor. Kicking the fragments out of the way, Salisbury stepped in behind her, and with both hands stroked the graceful curve of her back. Bob watched, smiling grimly. Jeremy watched, amazed. Tat, tat, tat. The power. Miriam, his mother, the horse. Dawson Klinger, woman, vengeance, ricocheting thoughts. She looked over her shoulder at him. I've always wanted one of you like this, he giggled. He could not suppress it. He felt good. Scared of me? Her face was pale and streaked with tears. Her eyes were wide. Lovely, he said. I don't want you touching me. Miriam used to say that, but with Miriam it was an order. She never begged. He touched her. She was covered with goose flesh. Don't stop crying, he said. I like you crying. She sweat, not quietly, but uncontrollably and unashamedly, as if she were a child, as if she was in agony. As he prepared to enter her, he heard someone shout just beyond the window. Startled, he said, Who? The kitchen door crashed open. A boy no older than Jeremy Thorpe came inside, shouting at the top of his voice and windmilling with his thin arms. At the edge of the Thorpe property, Raya tossed the key and missed it again. 2 errors out of 40 catches isn't bad, she thought. In fact, that's Major League talent. Raya Annandale of the Boston Red Sox didn't sound bad, not bad at all. Raya Annandale of the Pittsburgh Pirates, that was even better. This time she saw where the key fell in the grass. She went straight to it and picked it up. When the door flew open and the boy, charging like a dangerous animal, breaking free of its cage, Salisbury stepped away from the woman and pulled up his trousers. You let go of her. The ball collided with him. Get out of here now! Out! Under attack, Salisbury staggered backwards. He was strong enough to handle the boy, but he was suffering from surprise and confusion. He had lost his balance. When he backed into the refrigerator, still trying to button the waistband of his slacks, the boy pummeled him. He realized that it was ridiculous for him, of all people, to retreat. I am the key. The boy hit him, called him names. Desperate, Salisbury fought back, seized him by the wrist and struggled with him. I am the key. Mr. Thorpe, Jeremy, help me. Stay right where you are, Salisbury told him. They didn't move. He swung the boy around, reversing their position, and slammed him against the refrigerator. Bottles and cans and jars rattled loudly on the shelves. Very young children would not have been affected by the subliminal program that had been played for Black River. Below the age of 8, children were not sufficient aware of death and sex to respond to the motivational equations that the subceptive films established in older individuals. Furthermore, although the vocabulary had been made as simple as possible since the whole Brooke-Rosner Picard indoctrination, a child had to have at least third grade reading ability to be properly impressed by the block letter message that established the key lock code phrase. But this boy was older than 8, and he should respond. Through clenched teeth, Salisbury said, "I'm the key, damn you." Halfway down the lawn, atop the great arbour, a robin bounced along the interlocking vines, stopped after every second or so, and cocked his head and peered between the leaves. Raya paused to watch him for a moment. Panic. He had to guard against panic, but he had made a fatal mistake, and he might have the power taken away from him. No, it was a serious mistake, granted, very serious, but not fatal. He must not back call. "Who are you?" he asked. The boy squirmed and tried to free himself. "Where are you from?" Salisbury demanded, gripping him so tightly that he gasped. The boy kicked him in the shin hard. For an instant, Salisbury's whole world was reduced to a bright bolt of pain that shot from his ankle to his thigh, coruscated in his bones. Howling, wincing, he almost fell. Wrenching loose, the boy ran towards the sink, away from the table, intent on getting around Salisbury. Salisbury stumbled after him, cursing. He grabbed at the boy's shirt, hooked it with his fingers, lost hold of it in the same second, tripped and fell. "If the little bastard gets away." "Bob!" Panic. "Stop him!" Hysteria. "Kill him! For God's sake, kill him!" The canary cage was on the lawn by the kitchen window. Raya heard Buster chattering, and then she heard someone shouting in the house. Tat, tat, tat. Salisbury got up. Sick, scared, the naked woman wept. Crazily, he thought of the refrain from the rhyme that went with the child's game he had once played. "All fall down, all fall down." Thorpe blocked the door. The boy tried to dodge him, kill him. Thorpe caught the intruder and drove him backwards, knocked him against the electric range with devastating force, clutched him by the throat and pounded his head into the stainless steel bright work that ringed the 4 burners. A frying pan fell to the floor with a clang as if it was a machine, and automation. Thorpe hammered the boy's head against the metal edge until he felt the skull give way, when blood sprayed across the wall behind the range and streamed from the boy's nostril. The man let go and stepped back as his body crumbled at his feet. Jeremy was crying. "Stop that," Salisbury said sharply. The boy stopped reluctantly. On his way to the bloody child, Salisbury saw a girl in the open door. She was staring at the blood, and she seemed embarrassed by the sight. He started towards her. She looked up, dazed. "I'm the key." She turned and fled. Salisbury ran to the door, but when he got there, she was already gone around the corner of the house, out of sight. Part 2. Terror. Chapter 1. Friday, August 26, 1977. 9:45 a.m. Rye sat in the front seat of the station wagon between Paul and Jenny, silent and unmoving, gripped by what had appeared to be fear and by anger as well. Her hands were curled into solid little fists in her lap. Beneath her summer tan she was ashen. Fine beads of perspiration were strung along her hairline. She pressed her lips together like the halves of a vice, partly to keep them from trembling, partly as a sign of her extreme anger, frustration, and determination to prove herself right. Although she had never lied to him about anything serious, Paul couldn't believe the story she had told them minutes ago. She had seen something odd at the Thorpe house. He was fairly certain of that. However, she had surely misinterpreted what she had seen. When she burst in upon Sam, Jenny, and him at the store, her tears and horror had been genuine. Of that there was absolutely no doubt. And Mark dead? Unthinkable. Beaten to death by Bob Thorpe, the chief of police. Ridiculous. If she wasn't lying, well, then she was at least terribly confused. "It's true, Daddy. It's true. I swear to God, it's true. They killed him. They did. Mr. Thorpe did. The other man told Mr. Thorpe to kill, and he did. He kept banging Mark's head. His head banging against the stove. It was awful, banging it over and over, all the blood. Oh my God, Daddy. It's crazy, but it's true." It was crazy, and it couldn't be true. Yet when she first came into the store, breathing hard, half choked and half crying, babbling as if she were in a fever, so unlike herself, he felt an icy hand on the back of his neck. As she told her improbable story, the glacier finger lingered, and they were all still there. He turned the corner into Union Road. The police chief house was a quarter of a mile away, the last on the street near the river. The garage, large enough for 2 cars and topped by a workman's loft, lay 50 yards beyond the house. He pulled into the driveway and parked the station wagon in front of the garage. "Where's the canary cage?" he asked. Raya said, "It was over there, near the window. They've moved it. Looks calm, peaceful. Doesn't seem like a murder took place half an hour ago." "Inside," Raya said sharply. "They killed him inside." Jenny took hold of the girl's hand, squeezed it. Raya. Inside, her face was set. She was resolute. Let's have a look, Paul said. They got out of the car and crossed the freshly mowed lawn to the back of the house. Emma had evidently heard them drive up, for by the time they reached the kitchen stoop, she had the door open and was waiting for them. She wore a royal blue floor-length corduroy houseboat with a high neckline, round collar, and light blue corduroy belt at the waist. Her long hair was combed back and tucked behind her ears, held in place by a few bobby pins. She was smiling, pleased to see them. Hi, Paul said awkwardly. He was suddenly at loss for words. If even a tiny fraction of Raya's tale was true, Emma would not be this serene. He began to feel foolish for having placed any faith whatsoever in such a bizarre story. He couldn't imagine how he would ever tell Emma about it. Hi there, she said cheerily. Hello, Raya. Jenny, how is your father? Fine, thanks, Jenny said. She sounded quite as bewildered as Paul felt. Well, Emma said, I'm still in my robe. The breakfast dishes haven't been washed. The kitchen is a greasy mess. But if you don't mind sitting down in the disaster zone, you're welcome to visit. Paul hesitated. Something wrong? Emma asked. Is Bob home? He's at work. When did he leave? Same as every day, a few minutes before 9. He's at the police station or cruising around in the patrol car. Emma no longer needed to ask if something was wrong. She knew why. Why indeed, Paul thought, rather than explain. He said, is Mark here? He was, Emma said. He and Jeremy went over to the basketball court behind the Union Theatre. When was that? Half an hour ago. It seemed to him that she had to be telling the truth, for her statement could be verified or disproved so easily. If her husband had killed Mark, what could she hope to gain by such a flimsy lie? Besides, he didn't think she was the sort of woman who could take part in the cover-up of a murder, certainly not with such apparent equanimity, not without showing a great deal of stress and guilt. Paul looked down at Raya. Her face was still a mask of stubbornness, and even more pale and drawn than it had been in the car. What about Buster? She asked Emma. Her voice was sharp and too loud. Did they take Buster over to the court so he could play basketball with them? Understandably bewildered by the girl's uncharacteristic nastiness and her intense reaction to such a simple statement, Emma said, the squirrel. Oh, they left him with me. Do you want the squirrel? She stepped back out of the doorway, coming for a moment, recalling the tale of mindless violence that Raya had related just 30 minutes ago. Paul wondered if Bob thought was in the kitchen waiting for him. But that was absurd. Emma was not aware that suppose a boy had been slain in her kitchen this morning. He would have wagered nearly any sum on that, and in the light of Emma's innocence, Raya's story seemed altogether a fantasy, but not really a very good one at that. He went inside. The canary cage stood in one corner next to the flip-top waste can. Buster sat on his hind feet and fussily nibbled an apple. His tail flicked straight up, and he went stiff as a wooden squirrel when he became aware of the guest. He assessed Paul's, Rise, and Jenny as if he had never seen them before, decided that it was no longer danger, and returned to his breakfast. Mark told me he likes apples, Emma said. He does. The kitchen held no evidence that a violent and deadly struggle had taken place. The dishes on the table were spotted with dried egg yolk, butter, and crumbs of toast. The clock radio produced soft instrumental music, an orchestrated version of a pop tune. The new issue of the weekly newspaper distributed that morning was folded in half and propped against 2 empty juice glasses and a sugar bowl. A cup of steaming coffee stood beside the paper. If she had watched her husband murder a child, could Emma have sat down to read less than an hour after the killing? Impossible, impossible. There was no blood on the wall behind the electric range, no blood on the range itself, and no blood, not even one thin smear on the tile floor. Did you come to get Buster? Emma asked. She was clearly perplexed by the behaviour. No, Paul said, but we'll take him off your hands. Actually, I'm ashamed to tell you why he did come. They cleaned it up, Raya said. I don't want to hear. They cleaned up the blood, she said excitedly. Paul pointed out one finger at her. You have caused quite enough trouble for one day, young lady. You keep quiet. I'll talk to you later. Ignoring his warning, she said, they cleaned up the blood and his body. Body? Emma looked confused. What body? It's a misanding hoax, or Paul began. Raya interrupted him. To Emma, she said, Mr. Thorpe killed Mark. You know he did, don't lie. You stood at that chair and watched him beat Mark to death. You were naked and Raya's, Paul said sharply. It's true. I told you to be quiet. She was naked, and in 11 years he had never been required to deal out any punishment more severe than a 24-hour suspension of some of her privileges. But now angry, he started towards her. Raya pushed past Jenny, threw open the kitchen door and ran. Paul went after her. When he set foot on the stoop, she was already out of sight. She couldn't have had time to run to the garage or to the station wagon. Therefore, she must have slipped around the corner of the house, either left or right. He decided she would most likely head for the Union Road, and he went that way. When he reached the sidewalk, he saw her and called to her. She was nearly a block away, on the far side of the street, still running. If she heard him, she didn't respond. She disappeared between two houses. He crossed the street and followed her, but when he reached the rear lawn of the house, she wasn't there. Raya. She didn't answer him. She might have been too far to hear, but he suspected that she was hiding nearby. Raya, I just want to talk to you. Nothing. Silence. Already his anger had largely given way to concern for her. What in the name of God has possessed the girl? Why had she concocted such a grisly story, and how had she managed to tell it with such passion? He hadn't really believed any of it, not from the start. Yet he'd been so impressed by her sincerity that he'd come to the Thorpe's house to see for himself. She wasn't a liar by nature. She wasn't that good an actress, at least not in his experience. And when her story was shown to be a lie, why had she defended it so ardently? How had she defended it so ardently, knowing it was a lie? Did she believe, perhaps, that it wasn't a fabrication? Did she think that she actually had seen her brother killed? But if that was the case, she was mentally disturbed. Mentally disturbed. Raya was tough. Raya knew how to cope. Raya was a rock. Even an hour ago, he would have staked his life on her soundness of mind. Was there any psychological disorder that could strike a child so suddenly, without warning, without any symptoms beforehand? Deeply rage, he went back across the street to apologize to Emma Thorpe. Thanks for listening.